welcome back to another video. This really popped when I saw it. That to me is a monster increase. Again, this book got hot. This book is ready to go higher.
So let's jump right into it.
We are back today with another statue review from Diamond Select Toys. Without further ado, let's get into the review. What is going on YouTube? This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and thank you for joining me for another video here on the channel. Today we have something different. I wanted to take a look at that Comic Connect auction that happened a couple of weeks ago. There were some great books that actually ended up selling on that auction, so I wanted to pull 6 of those books, some of the bigger books in our industry, and take a look at them. But before we get started in the video, like always, I want to remind you guys, if you're not a current subscriber of the channel, do me a favor, hit that sub button for me. Once we get to 6,000 subs, you guys know I'm giving something awesome away. And of course, hit that like button for me because it really does help the channel out. With that said, let's check out these books. So the first book I actually want to take a look at today is a copy of Punch Comics number 12. Now this book does not come up for sale ever really. It's really such a hard book to find. Now this copy in a CGC 1.5 cream to off-white pages sold at this auction August 24th for $13,480.33. Now I believe that is without the 15% buyer's premium that you pay with Comic Connect, so you got to add 15% onto this sale. Now when I say this book doesn't really come up for sale, it really doesn't. So we're going to jump into the GPA data at a 1.5. There's been one sale over the past couple of years at this grade, and it was for $14,400 back in September of 2022. And again, before that, we hadn't had a sale in quite some time. I think 2018, if you scroll to the bottom, you see that little bit of part of the graph. That is the last time we had a 1.5 sell. Now we're also going to take a look at the CGC data. There are a total of only 37 copies known out there in existence of a CGC graded book for this one, Punch Comics number 12. Now, of course, the publisher is Harry A. Chesler. It's a classic skull cover, Gus Rika cover, Joe Beck and Otto Eppers art. Now, 32 copies are universal grade, the highest being a CGC 8.0 very fine, which is remarkable in my opinion. There are 0 qualified issues, 0 signature series issues, which I've totally expected, and 5 restored copies. Now the lowest grade being of course a 0.5, 2 restored and 2 universal. However, I'm going to say this right now, the person actually paid a decent amount for this book, going to be over probably $15,000 with that premium. But again, when you do not see this book come up for auction that often or even for sale, I think it's a must buy if you're a pre-code horror collector. Next up, let's take a look at one of the biggest Copper Age books in our industry. Here we have a CGC 9.8 copy of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 1, the first print, and it is also a white pager. To boot, it is signed by the creators of TMNT, Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman, although it is not a witness signature, regardless, still signed by both of the creators. Now, this book sold for $155,250 on 74 bids, and again, add that 15% right on top of that. A good price for this book, in my opinion. Now, I want to jump into the CGC census data first. We have a total of 1,203 copies on the census. We all know that 3,000 copies were printed. Only 1,200 on the census. I'm a little shocked by that number. I thought it would be a little bit higher considering we know how many of the copies were actually printed. Now, 997 copies are blue universal grade, the highest being a 9.8, this copy that just sold. 11 are qualified, 137 signature series. Again, this book does not qualify for that because they're not witness signatures. And of course, 58 restored copies, a decent amount. So as we jump into the GPA data, you could see the last time we had a 9.8 sale in this book was in November of 2022 of $156,000. The 12-month rolling average for this one, $171,000 on just 2 sales. But back in 2021, look at the sale we had on this book. There were 2 sales in 2021, averaging $237,778. That is just a massive drop in this book. Again, for a book that is super scarce, we all know basically 3,000 copies out there, 1,200 graded. That is a really big drop in my opinion. Let's look at the chart on the bottom of this graphic. As you can see, the book in 2011 was really steady up into the boom in 2019. We got a giant pop, kind of came down a little bit in 2020, and that had a massive boost in value in 2021. And right now we're sitting at this last sale of $155 plus the 15%. My bottom price for this book, where it could go a little bit lower, is probably around the height of this last sale back in 2019. Regardless, guys, if you're a TMNT fan and you have this kind of scratch to buy for a book, it's a massive one to own, considering there's not a lot of copies out there. Am I going to throw probably 200 grand at a copy of a Copper Age book? Me? Probably not. I'd rather own a big key like a Superman one or a Batman one. I think that's putting this kind of money to better use, in my opinion. But who am I to say? Someone really got a decent deal for this book, considering where it was just a couple of years ago. Speaking of a Batman 1, also in this auction was this copy of a Batman 1 in a CGC 2.5 off-white pager with slight restoration. Now, the restoration includes a small amount of color touch, tear seals, and a small amount of glue on the cover. Really not much work done to this book. Now, this person, I think, actually got this one for a steal. It actually ended up selling for only $69,000 plus that 15%. And there were only 31 bids. As you can take a look at the back cover, that's where really a lot of the damage is on this book, but it really does present very nice. Now, as we pull the GPA data, guys, there really doesn't give you a lot of information of the restored books out there, because some of these books around this grade point are trimmed. There's married pages, stuff like that. There's a back cover married. So, and a lot of the data was from back in 2006, 2007, where you could have had this book for under $10,000, and a 3.0 cover trim only $6,900, a 3.0 married pages $3,800, and a 3.0 trimmed $8,000. Now, again, that's a far cry from $69,000 plus that premium. Regardless, let's take a look at the non-restored data for a 2.5, and the number is just staggering. So the last time we had a 2.5 Blue Label copy sale was just this past March for $215,000. Again, we hadn't had a sale since then, since 2022. We had one sale for $270,000. So as we can see, some of these big books, even the Golden Age books, have come down a bit over the past couple of years. But regardless, for $70,000 plus with that premium, not a bad buy, considering some of the restoration on this book can be removed. Now, I know depending where the glue is, they could count that as not restoration, but in this case, with the tear seals and a little bit of color touch, of course, it's going to come back that purple label. This book might be a candidate to have that stuff removed, but again, it is kind of a big chance to take on a book like this. But hey, if you got $70,000 plus to spend on this book, you might as well take that risk. Now, we're going to take a look at the CGC census. Now, the last time I looked at a Batman 1, there were 298 copies. We're up to 301, which is actually not that bad. 144 universal grade, 7 qualified, 3 signature series, and 147 restored. The highest universal label for this one is a 9.4 near mint. The highest grade of a restored copy is a 9.2. 6 of those out there, which is quite remarkable. You guys know I own a Batman #1. It is a restored copy, a little bit more work than this book had done, but either way, I think this book is a great buy if you're going to hold it for the next 20 plus years. Next up, let's talk about some Wonder Woman, right? I've actually seen a lot of All-Star Comics #8, her true first appearance, come for sale within the past 6 months or so, and I cannot believe the prices that they're going for. They really have come down over the past year or so. People are really unloading books right now, no matter if it's Silver Age, Golden Age. A lot of big books are trying to be sold. And I understand why, because the market is very soft right now. People want to kind of liquidate cash because maybe they think that they need it. Maybe they want to put it to work in other areas. Regardless, we're going to take a look at a copy of Sensation Comics #1. So it's the second appearance of Wonder Woman. And the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the CGC census, right? So there are a total of this book graded by CGC, 111 copies. A lot less than I really thought. 35 restored copies, 2 qualified issues, 0 signature series, and 75 universal grade. The highest of them being a 9.6. There is one copy of this book out there at a 9.6. That is remarkable. Hey, crack it, try to get it a 9.8, right? I'm just kidding, guys. You're not going to do that with a book like this. Either way, this book sold on August 24th for $58,000 on 35 bids. And I'm going to pose a question to you guys because it's something that I ponder often. This is the second appearance of Wonder Woman, first in her Sensation Comics title, of course. Would you rather spend, 60+ thousand on this book or get a lower grade copy of All-Star Comics 8? You guys tell me. I know she's not on the cover for All-Star 8. If she was, I think that book would be a lot more desired than it is right now. Wonder Woman, of course, is on the cover of this one, so I think a lot of people are willing to spend more money to have her on the cover. Same with that whole Doctor Strange, right? Strange Tales 110, he's not on the cover, really has killed the value of that book. But let's take a look at the GPA data. This book does not come up for sale that often either. In a 6.0 universal grade, we did not have a sale since last June 2022, and that was for $86,250. But as you can see, there's some of the other grade points around the 6.0. A 5.5 sold for $40,000 this year. A 6.5 sold for $84,000 in January of this year. So this book in this grade come down a little bit, actually 30+ thousand. So that is not a good sign for Wonder Woman, especially now that, of course, we don't know what's going to go on with the character in the new DCU. I do not think some of these major books are affected by the movies that are going to be coming out. These are major keys we're talking about, and that's why I wanted to bring this to the attention of the community. I know a bunch of other YouTubers have covered most of these books, but to me, with some of these massive keys that are dropping, if you have the scratch and you can hold and just keep them in the collection or put them in the bank safety deposit box, I still think these are great buys, especially when this one like this come down 30+% in such a short period of time, just over a year. Again, I'll pose that question to you, All-Star 8 or this one in a higher grade. To me, I'm always going to go for the first appearance regardless. I still think it's a better buy, especially because it'll cost you less money at lower grades. Nice presenting copies, of course. Either way, I think a lot of people out there are just liquidating right now. And this is one I definitely would love to scoop up, but I would need to own it in a much lower grade. All right, so let's talk about the big boy book, right? We've been all watching the amount of Superman #1s that have been coming to the market recently over the past year. And we had another one in this auction, a CGC 1.5, a very nice presenting copy of this one. As you can see on the bottom left hand, along the spine, there is some damage right there. The back is in decent shape as well. This book sold for $132,250 on August 25th, and now add 15% to that. That is a nice chunk of change, and it sold on 24 bids. Now, at a 1.5 grade, the last sale for this book was back in June of 2022 for a whopping $192,000. Again, just over a year ago, a nice decline of probably about 20 to 25%. If you look at some of the other grades on this GPA data, you can see the 1.8 sold in November of last year for $288,000. We had a 1.0 Blue Label, $101,000, again, March of this year. So a lot of copies being sold in the lower grade tiers. We had a copy back in 2014, a trimmed with married pages for only $10,755. To me, that's a book I definitely would buy for such a little price. Probably going to go around $30,000, I would say, right now to own a Superman 1 restored copy. But as we take a look at the CGC census, you could see for Superman 1, there are 176 total copies out there that have been graded by CGC. 73 universal grade, 4 qualified, and 99 restored copies. No signature series out there, which does not surprise me. Now, this is, of course, is the origin of Superman. There is a Superman pinup on the back cover, Jerry Siegel story, Joe Shuster cover and art. So again, Superman 1, a lot of people dumping them right now. This person got a 20 to 25% deal, in my opinion. But hey, like, a lot of people who may own these books are investors. They're people who are older in the community who probably have bought these books for a hell of a lot less than they're selling for right now. In my opinion, I don't know who bought this book last. I cannot say. Regardless, guys, if you have this type of scratch, it's a must-own book in our industry. But we can see nothing is immune right now. I know silver has been really crushed over the past year and a half, to the point where I have friends asking me all the time, what am I supposed to do? I'm losing all this money. Don't panic. I did videos in the past recently that said, hold on to these books. I still think some of the best Silver Age keys will go up over time. Over 20 years, it's a given. It's never come down. You get these lows, you get these, valleys over that time period. And then, you know, with the whole MCU and the DCU cooling off with the whole strike and movies not being as great, once they restart again and they put out some good stuff, whether it's using these characters or other characters, renewed interest will come back to the comic book community. Right now, people who are not collectors, they're investors or casual collectors, they've kind of gotten out of the market, so it's just us. So again, now is a great time if you're a long-term holder, in my opinion, and this is probably a top 3 book out there in our industry. So if you can afford $150,000+ for a Superman 1 and you're willing to hold, people are dumping right now. So now is the time to buy, in my opinion, of course. So the last book I want to take a look at this week is, of course, the Silver Age King. It is a copy of Amazing Fantasy number 15, and this one at a CGC 5.5, an off-white to white pager, sold on August 22nd for $71,000 plus that 15%. Now, the main thing with AA15 is the presentation, right? You can see this one, a really nice copy of this book. The colors are great. There's only that really top left edge of the book that has some damage, or it could possibly have gotten a 6.0 or a 6.5. The back actually looks pretty good as well. Now, to me, as we take a look at the GPA data, you can see the last sale for this book was $66,000 in January of this year. So this one is already over that. I'm not too sure of the presentation of that last sale. Regardless, if we go back to 2022, the average of this book was absolutely insane, $107,227 on 6 sales. I always talk about the beginning of 2022 to the middle as when mass hysteria took over. So a lot of copies sold, and a 5.5, in my opinion, 6 for just this grade is quite a large amount. In 2021, the average is right around where I think this book needs to be, $80,044 on 2 sales. You can see this one right now at a 5.5 is just under $80,000 with that fee that was added in. Of course, you got to add tax as well. That tax man is always there. So this one is starting to come back just a little bit. But as you look at the chart on the bottom of this graphic, it shows you June of 2002 all the way up to December of 2022. Now, until 2021, this book was pretty steady, slightly going up over time with inflation, with popularity, of course, of Spider-Man. But in 2021, this book went absolutely bananas. So I'm happy to see it's right now where it actually should be selling for. I think we do have a plateau at a 5.5 grade of about $50,000 to $60,000. So I don't think it goes much lower than that ever. This is going to do for another video, but if you could go to the top of the chart in around 2017 to 2018, that should really be where the bottom of this book is. You don't really want to see this book going below that. If it ever does go below that price, there will be an issue, probably a massive crash, but I don't see us getting there anytime soon. So for me, I think it's a great time to jump in to AF15. As long as it's blue label, it's nothing missing, no resto. I always say that with Silver Age books. Now, as we get into the CGC census, you can see there are about 3,700 copies of this one, 3779 to be exact, 2,462 universal grade, the highest being a 9.6. There are actually 4 copies at a 9.6 of this book, which shocks me. 54 qualified issues, 298 signature series, the highest being a 8.0, and 965 restored copies, the highest being a 9.8, which is absolutely nuts. To me, I would not want to own a restored copy. Regardless, I think a lot of people with this book has been really scared because of how much it has come down over the past year and a half. You're looking at close to 40%, which is quite a huge drop. But right now, I'm not really seeing too many AF15s out there for sale. There was a point where I'd see like 10 a day go up for sale on Instagram. I'm not seeing that anymore. I only remember seeing about 1 or 2 that are actually for sale at certain grades. And I guess as you get into the higher grades, it becomes more difficult for people to go ahead and buy them. I always say with AF15 and a lot of Silver Age books, buy what you can afford. I actually like anywhere from a 1.0 to like a 3.5 for a lot of these books. I think that's where the sweet spot is. Still affordable, and a lot of people out there can go out and buy them at the lower grade. So again, good book to take a look at, a good barometer for this book right now from Comic Connect. That's it for this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, these are some of the books that are the barometer for the comic market and for, some of the major books in our industry that we have to keep an eye on. That's why I really wanted to go over them and see where they stand right now. Don't panic, right? If you own any book right now, unless there's like millions of copies out there, which there are a lot of like Copper and Modern and stuff like that. That's why I tend to not buy those books, because I don't buy comics just for value. I buy them because I have an attachment and the history of those characters. I think that's where it lies, the importance of a lot of these books. So keep that in mind if you're looking to spend a decent amount of money on books. Again, if you're just buying stuff just to have it, you're probably not spending this kind of cash anyway, so it really doesn't matter. Hope you enjoy this one. This was Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles saying thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you guys soon.